Okay guys, next what I want to do, I always try to get as much training value as out of outings as much as possible. So I just got done filming the 3A and 3B gear video. Next what I want to do is I've got this little titanium stove and I've used it a few times, but I haven't used it in a while. And with winter coming on, one thing I kind of want to work with this winter is just different stove setups. Last winter, kind of wasn't real happy with the isobutane type stuff, and I don't know that I really want to carry around a gasoline powered stove in my pack, especially when there's other options out there that work off, basically twigs and sticks and such. So this is a little one that I've had for a while, and it just, hooks together. See that? So it's got a little base. What I like about these is they get your fire up off the ground and they give it lots of airflow, and that's why you can, a normal campfire is very inefficient actually, and if you can give the fuel great airflow, you don't need as much of it. So as you can see, this base kind of has 3 little wings that clip in to some slots on these 3 sides. And there is no wing on the front. There we go. There. Okay. And last but not least, little pot supports. There. Okay. And then you just feed the fire through this open hole here. So we're going to go gather up some kindling, twigs, get ourselves some tea going while I get this pack back up. So I saw right over here, just right past where I was filming, we've got all these dead branches and twigs coming off the side of this juniper tree. We've got these nice dry needles. Anytime you're looking for kindling and tinder, you listen real close. I'll get close to it. You hear that snap? That tells you that this stuff is dry, seasoned wood. It's going to burn nice and hot. It's going to light easily. Doesn't have a lot of moisture. And being up here, like this stuff is, it's up in the sun, it's up in the breeze. What I teach in class is you want to avoid low-hanging fruit, which would be basically anything coming off the ground. I pretty much tell people to avoid anything from knee height and below. And so like over here, we got this branch that fell on the ground. It's got these really dead, crumbly needles on it. These ones up here, off this branch where this one most likely fell from, are going to be much, much drier and burn much easier than this one, even though it's the same basically plant. But it's been on the ground absorbing moisture. It's gotten snowed on, dew, etc. So you always want to avoid that low-hanging fruit and select your fire-making materials from up high. Tinder is going to be anything number 2 pencil lead or smaller, like this stuff here. Kindling is pretty much number 2 pencil lead up to thumb size. And then fuel, be back here, basically thumb size, honestly up to maybe wrist size. That's your fuel that you really want to be if you're out gathering resources for a good fire. A big fat 6-inch log doesn't really do us any good if we don't have a fire big enough to burn that kind of material. So that's why kind of wrist size is our cutoff, because if I have a wrist-sized, piece of wood, like for instance, if I were to take this entire branch way down low, it's getting pretty close to wrist size towards the bottom. I need a fire hot enough to burn that kind of material. Now, eventually, if I get enough of that material burning, then I can move, of course, up to larger and larger and larger stuff, because that's kind of the key to a fire, is working your way from small to big. So I'm going to gather up, decent sized collection of this stuff over here and take it over to the stove and get it lit. Okay, guys, so I went over and I got about a nice softball sized bundle of those dried out orange needles, not the ones off the ground, but the ones off the tree. Stuffed them in the bottom, and then I cut off this branch. He's got lots of, basically everything I'm going to be needing for a small fire, just to boil some water. That's a great way to practice your skills, is just go out on a day and... What I meant to say was to pick a day and to go out and train no matter what the weather. That way you get training in the most realistic conditions possible. The colder and wetter, the better, is what I say. Gather up some natural materials and, pick kind of what your skill level is for fire starting, and start a fire and boil up some water. It's actually a pretty good way to just develop some good skill. I haven't done it as much lately, but I'm going to do it today. I'm going to try, and I've been really focused on trying to find a good emergency tinder source that I can pack with me for use with my ferro rod. While knowing how to identify and utilize natural materials in your region for fire making is very important, and it's a skill I teach in class to my students. I still advocate carrying a ready-made source of tinder that you can light easily and quickly with a ferro rod. Ferro rods don't rely on any fuel or anything like that. They work when they're wet, and so having that combination together gives me a good way to get a fire started. And if I collect up those other natural resources to start a fire like I'm getting ready to do here, I can almost guarantee a fire in any weather condition. My two favorite sources of that tinder are the Tinder Quick tabs, and then also the Self-Reliance Outfitters Mini Inferno. Those are both excellent tools to use with a ferro rod, and they work in any weather condition. So I'm going to practice lighting up one of those Tinder Quick tabs with my ferro rod here in a minute. And so I'm just breaking, here I've got basically up to roughly number 2 pencil size. That's my kindling stack. Now I'm going to make my fuel. I got to make it small enough to fit in my stove, obviously. Get that guy in half. And so once I get everything lit, the needles, I'm going to go ahead and put a bunch of these in, so those needles will start lighting this larger tinder. There we go. Because they're going to go fast, I think. So you got to kind of have your stuff prepped and ready. But these Twig stoves are usually pretty efficient, so you don't need a ton of stuff to really start getting some good heat. Okay. Finish getting my fuel together. Probably gonna need to cut that one with my saw. So when you're using your cutting tools, it's a good opportunity. I don't want to sit here and cut like this, getting really close to my femoral arteries and other vital body parts. So you're gonna do what's called a plumber's vise. That way, see, like just like that, when that branch gave and my saw went like that, I'm not hitting myself. I'm just using pressure from my leg to hold that stick. That's pretty good there. So in my pocket, I carry my Bic lighter with a little pill capsule attached. And I always keep some of these Tinder Quick tabs in there. These Tinder Quick tabs are just like a little cotton wad, I guess. It's been soaked in an accelerant. You start plucking it apart, getting all those fibers exposed. I'm going to hit it with my ferro rod here and see what happens. Alright guys, changed angles there so you guys can see what's going on here. So I've got my stove loaded with needles and small kindling. I've got my Tinder Quick tab set up here. I'll go ahead and try and get a spot made there and get him put in there. Some of the other tabs I've used in the past, you can kind of get them wedged on a stick. See if we can do that with this one. That's kind of the only hard part about using these that I've found so far, is I don't go getting them in the fire, you know. So I'll just lay that there. Be using my knife with the ferro rod scraper and get my ferro rod out. Always keep your gear, critical gear, dummy corded. That's why that cord's there, because, you know, even if for some reason I get, I don't know, for some reason I get the fire going and I drop my ferro rod, it's attached to me. I'm not going to burn it up. So, you know, when you're using a ferro rod, you want to support it in one hand and support the knife in the other. And then that's going to be a bad angle for you guys. So I'll turn. There we go. Just going to get that up in there. One thing I forgot to mention is I want the wind direction blowing up in the stove. That away. Just throw it in my pocket. I'm going to continue feeding this small kindling into that stove, and you can tell it's a very efficient design because there's almost no smoke. You know, that means the fire's burning good. I mean, look at the flame coming off that. It's just these little twigs and needles. That down in there. So definitely a good stove design, lights well, pretty lightweight, compact. I mean, can't really beat a deal like that. Okay, now I'm gonna start throwing some fuel on there, letting that stuff get hot and start burning. Okay, now I'm going to get some water going. I think from here I can feed that just through the top, or I mean through the front. Tell you, that cedar smells amazing. Get some of these smaller pieces in there and going. Sometimes I call it cedar. Sometimes I call it juniper. It's technically juniper, but everybody around here calls them cedars, including myself sometimes. Okay, put my lid on my cup, put my tea bag in, have some tea. Well, guys, got my tea heated up. I'm going to sit down and eat a little snack first. It's the first food I've had today, so I'm going to eat that before I get packed up, and then I'm going to head back. I want to say thanks again for watching, and have a good day.